Hello friends, it is Stasia and welcome back to my channel. Today we will be going over my May wrap up. I feel like May has definitely got things turning. I'm reading again and I feel like I have enjoyed most of the books that I read in May, so that is so fun. We'll get into those books in just a second. First, we're gonna go over the books that I acquired in the month of May. I ended up skipping my book of the month box, so I didn't end up buying any book in the month of May, so that's great. I also did not acquire much. I only have 5 books to share with you guys. I don't know too much about these books because I was gifted all of them, so I'm not super sure and I don't read too much of the synopsis for most of them, but we'll go ahead and share the 5 books that I acquired in the month of May. So the first book that I got is Never Been Shipped by Alicia Thompson. I believe this is a friends to lovers. They were in a band together. The band broke, well, they were besties. Then they started a band together. Then the band broke up and they lost touch. And then now they are in forced proximity again. Then I got Battle of the Bookstores by Allie Brady. This is enemies to lovers. There's a rivalry between 2 bookstores and they are competing for the same promotion to become manager. Then I got Before We Were Strangers by Renee Carlino. I don't know too much about this. Second chance romance. Apparently it's supposed to rip your heart out and you're supposed to sob, so this is on the docket to be read soon. Then I got The Wasp Trap by Mark Edwards. A dinner party in a beautiful Notting Hill townhouse turns into a sinister game as 6 old friends are forced to spill their darkest secrets. Or else. All love a good secret moment. And then the last book that I got in the month of May was The Confessions by Paul Bradley Carr. Millions of letters arrive in the mail. Murders are uncovered, affairs revealed, family secrets exposed. These are the first confessions. This is our last chance. Okay, so I'm assuming people maybe are like sending letters in? Not entirely sure, but that's this, and that puts a wrap on the 5 books that I accumulated in the month of May. I will say these are both June releases, so I'm hoping to read both of these in June. So hopefully in my June wrap up, these will be read. I have plans to read this in July, and this one also comes out in July, so maybe this will be read as well. And then this one doesn't come out until September. So that's kind of just a look on my potential plans for the books that I accumulated this month. So that is all of the books that I acquired in the month of May. Now let us go ahead and go over some quick stats and then we will get into the books that I read. So first and foremost, I ended up reading 7 books. That came out to 2,436 pages. My genre breakdown was 4 romance, 2 thrillers, and 1 fantasy. My format breakdown was 3 physical, 2 audio, and 2 ebooks. And yeah, so I'm gonna go over the books that I read in the order that I read them. So the first book I ended up finishing in the month of May was The Playlist by Morgan Elizabeth. This is for my Unwrapped reading vlog. I think this one is already out, so I'll link it above and below if you want to hear more thoughts. But I ended up giving this book 3.5 stars. This book follows Zoe and Xander. Zoe is best friends with Xander's younger sister. There was kind of always tension there, but the timing was never right for them, so they never pursued anything. Now, Zoe has kind of just got a revelation on life, realized that she's not where she thought she was going to be, so she kind of has a breakdown, quits her job, breaks up with her boyfriend, and is kind of just hanging out and just seeing where things take her. Then cue Xander. Xander is also single, so this is the first time in a very long time where they are both single. Xander decides, with the help of his sister, to shoot his shot. So Zoe and Xander end up going on a road trip for, I believe it's like a week long. It's just a week break before Zoe potentially has a new job interview. So they end up going on a road trip, and Xander is kind of just trying to convince Zoe on why she belongs with him and kind of be honest with herself about what is actually going on in her life that's making her unhappy. So that's this. Not gonna give you too much of my final thoughts because it is in a vlog, but like I said, 3.5 stars. The next book I read, fully tabbed and annotated, Unwrapping by Erin Connor. I gave this book 4.5 stars. This I read for the Mending Hearts book club. And I was so excited to see lots of people join us, and we had a lot of good reviews. So this one was a very big hit so far in the book club. So this follows Sawyer, Sawyer, I think it's Sawyer. This book follows Sawyer and Mason. Sawyer is a romance author, but she's kind of been in a bit of a slump, so she's not really been writing. She just hasn't had inspiration. She doesn't really believe in love, so I guess it's very hard for her at this moment in her life to kind of be writing that. And Mason is an actor who has a very bad rep for kind of being a playboy. It's kind of the situation where the paparazzi is always just catching him with a new girl. So Mason needs to repair his image, but also lay low a little bit. And Sawyer needs inspiration for writing. So they decide to team up in the sense that Mason is going to help Sawyer kind of get her gears turning, and Sawyer is going to kind of take away Mason's rose-colored glasses and show him that not everything is worth falling in love over, because he's a hopeless romantic. So she's trying to break those antics. So they end up doing all of that. They have a list that they're going off of, all of these little adventures that they need to do that Mason thinks is romantic, and Sawyer's like, I'm gonna show you why it's not romantic, essentially is what's going on here. I will also mention there was a one-night stand, so they had like a little meet cute, and Sawyer was like, this is not a meet cute. They end up bumping into each other again. I don't know if it's the same day. And then they have a one-night stand, expect to never see each other again because they didn't exchange names, and then they ended up seeing each other again, obviously, and that's when everything came out for them to make this deal. So like I said, 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I thought Mason was just absolutely amazing. I love a golden retriever, like hopeless romantic male main character. I just loved that he loved love, and then I also loved the balance, because then we're like, oh my gosh, Mason is just like a hopeless romantic. He loves everything. Everything's great. And then we switch to like Sawyer's story, and she's just like, love sucks. What is going on? So I think that balance was so fun, having multiple POVs. I also thought the banter was so well done. There is like a third act breakup conflict sort of vibe, but I do feel like it made sense for these specific characters and their like actual like personality. So I feel like that made sense. Some of these chapters were a bit slow, and I kind of had to push myself to get through some of the chapters, but overall I really enjoyed my time with it. I really liked the adventures that they went on. I loved seeing them both slowly fall and also like maintain that friendship first. The side characters were so fun. Yeah, so overall this was great. I believe this is also Erin Connor's debut, and it was a great one. So I'm definitely going to be looking out for more in the future. The next book I read was Follow Me Back by A.V. Geiger. I gave this book 2 stars. This is a part of my Unwrap challenge, so there's that. This vlog should be out, if not already, then very soon after this video, hopefully. So this book follows Tessa. Tessa has agoraphobia, so she doesn't go outside. She is like, she had an experience, I think maybe like a year or so ago, where something happened that triggered this phobia, and now she just never goes outside. She stays on her phone all the time, and she's on Twitter. So she has a Twitter account that is basically like a fan account for this guy named Eric Thorne. He's a pop star. He sings and does all of this stuff. So she's obsessed with him. and that's basically what her Twitter account is for. Eric Thorne, like I said, is a pop star. He is very not happy with his career right now. He feels very stuck, I guess, in like his current contract, and he's just not enjoying it as much as he used to be. So he is trying to find a way to make people understand, I guess, what's going on. He ends up creating a fake account that is basically a hate account for himself. And then he ends up getting in touch with Tessa. They start talking, they form a connection, but Tessa doesn't know who she's really talking to, essentially. So that's kind of what we go through here. There's a lot of like mixed media, but the first chapter is literally a police interview transcript. And so from the beginning, we really don't know what's going on, because the transcripts will pop up periodically, but we don't really know what is actually being investigated. So that's what this book is about. Like I said, 2 stars. I just don't think I was the audience for it. I think I'm past like this vibe, but more thoughts in my blog that you can check out. The next book I read was Revive Me by Nikki Castle. I gave this book 5 stars. I love Nikki Castle. Nikki Castle is just phenomenal. Her sports romance are so fun. So this book follows Roman and Liliana. Liliana is a physical therapist, and at the beginning of the story, Roman is an MMA fighter. He's up and coming, and he just has like his whole career ahead of him. Everybody thinks very highly of him. He's very good at what he does. When he's at, I believe it's like a title fight, when he's at this fight, he ends up getting injured. That leaves him paralyzed from the waist down, which then leads for him to need to learn how to walk and learn how to do all of these things all over again. Obviously, that puts a halt to his fighting career, which is what he has worked for most of his life. That's where he found his safe space. So obviously this comes as a very big shock to Roman. So Roman and Liliana bump into each other at a bar pre-fight. They hit it off right away, but they end up like not doing anything. They don't hook up or anything like that, because Liliana's friends essentially call her away. So they think that they're never gonna see each other again, but the small amount of time that they did have together was very memorable for both of them. So they go on their separate ways. It's whatever. Roman has his fight. He gets his injury 2 years later. 2 years after, I believe it's 2 years after they originally met, Roman is now transferred to be Liliana's patient because he is very stubborn and essentially refuses to do anything. So he just keeps getting new PTs to see if anyone can help him. So obviously they cross paths again. At first Liliana doesn't think that Roman remembers who she is, so she's like, okay, this is fine, like I can work with him, he doesn't remember anything. But eventually obviously things come out where he's like, yeah, I do remember you, but I'm not the same person that, you know, you originally met. So essentially they start working together. Liliana obviously helps Roman a lot. Things start to unfold, but also things start to get messy. So yeah, that leads to that. Like I said, gave it 5 stars. I really loved Roman and Liliana. I felt like Roman's story was just so raw and emotional, and seeing how he felt, the way that Nikki Castle, I think, portrayed him in like he's not a hopeless character, but he has just lost his hope. And I really liked how Liliana approached that subject with him. She's like, hey, you don't need to carry the burden. Like, this is something that happens, and if you want help, then I can help you, but I can only help you so much, sort of vibe. I loved that everything was almost easy with them, but it wasn't, because they knew each other prior. So I feel like they had like certain expectations for each other, but then they essentially needed to relearn who the other person was. And I just felt like it was so good. It was such a fast read. I was honestly like addicted. I love the dual point of view. I love seeing how both of them felt. And then in the end, I loved how everything ended up being resolved, because the way this book was turning out, I was scared that it was going to be like dependency thing, and it didn't end up being that way. So I really loved how Nikki Castle actually had Roman do things on his own and had Liliana do things on her own, so that it's not like for lack of better terms, not a trauma bond, but it's real. Like, it grew in a place of hurt, I guess, with Roman's recovery, but it was so much more than that. And so yeah, I really loved it. 5 stars, definitely recommend. Beautiful. The next book I read was Phantasma by Kaylee Smith. This is the first book in the Wicked Games series. I gave this book 4.5 stars. I loved it. Also fully tabbed and annotated this. I didn't know what to expect from this, genuinely. But Aylin and Rylan were like, we really enjoyed it. We think you would enjoy it because it's very like Caraval vibes. So essentially, what is this book about? This book is about Ophelia and Blackwell. Ophelia is a necromancer, and her sister Genevieve is not. I guess only like firstborn in the family gets it. Ophelia's entire life, her mom is essentially training her to take over what her mom is currently doing, because Ophelia doesn't get her powers until her mother passes. So obviously her mother passes in the very beginning of the book. I promise, not spoiler. So Ophelia gets her powers, but with that she uncovers that there's a lot of secrets that her mother did not tell her about. Genevieve knew some of the things, but maybe not all of the things. And one of the biggest things was that their family home was about to get taken away. They were in debt and no one knew. So Genevieve enters this game called Phantasma. Phantasma is this like magical game that travels towns, and I believe it's like 7 days or like 7 rounds. Essentially they go through like 7 circles of hell, and there is a devil that runs each round. There's just different games that they play, and then they get through the round, they go on, so on and so forth. The end goal is if you win, you get like a wish. I think like anything you wish for is done. So Genevieve ends up entering the game. Ophelia, being the oldest, being like, no, this is not okay. She also enters, but since Ophelia did not enter with Genevieve, they are not in like the same groups. So now Ophelia needs to get through the first like 5 or 7 levels or something in order to even see if Genevieve is still in the game. So we're following Ophelia as she's getting through all of these games and all of these levels, trying to meet up with her sister to kind of get her back safely home and get that all squared away. When Ophelia enters the house, she runs into a phantom named Blackwell. Blackwell gives her a deal that he will help her through Phantasma if she helps release him, because the house of Phantasma has a hold on Blackwell and he would like to get out, but his memories are spotty. He doesn't know a whole bunch about how he got there, how to get out, but he asks Ophelia for help and eventually she says yes. They team up and things go from there. Obviously Blackwell and Ophelia spend a lot of time together. There is that initial attraction and things kind of just escalate from there. But like I said, 4.5 stars. This book was addicting. I didn't read it in a day, but when I was reading it, I couldn't put it down. So like I would read like chunks of it. Like I'd read like half the book in one day and then I'd have to take a break and then I'd read like another like quarter. So I read it in really big chunks and really enjoyed it. Blackwell, phenomenal. Love Blackwell. I actually really enjoyed Ophelia. I've not read too many reviews, so I don't know how people feel about Ophelia, but I really liked her. I love how headstrong she was. I love that at a certain point, she knew herself enough to know when she needed help, but she also wanted to do things on her own. She didn't want to rely on anyone, so I love that for her. I will say the like big reveal at the end, I expected. So for me, personally, the ending wasn't that big of a shock, I guess. I really enjoyed all of the games. Most. I think there's like one level where I was like, well, that was boring. But I loved the levels. I thought the creativity of the levels were so fun. I love seeing like how they got through it and like what the concept was. And then obviously like the side characters, like are they trying to be Ophelia's friend or are they trying to like defeat her? So I really loved it. It was so easy to read. It was so fast paced. Just great. I really loved it. And I also felt like I wasn't lost. I know a lot of the times with fantasy, I feel lost, that I don't know what's going on and I don't know what this author is talking about, but I didn't feel that with this. I really loved it. Phenomenal. 4.5 stars from me. All right, we got 2 more books. These ones should go decently fast. So the next book I read was Things Don't Break on Their Own by Sarah Easter Collins. This was also for Unwrapped. It went in the same vlog as this one. And this I also gave 2 stars. I don't know. I won't tell you too much about my thoughts. Essentially, what happens here is we're following Robin. Robin grew up and was friends with this girl named Willa. When Willa was, I think, a teenager, her older sister disappears. And essentially, no one knows what happens to her. She is gone without a trace. And they don't know. Like, it's basically an open case. They have no suspects. They have no leads. They know nothing. So, Willa's sister goes away. That's fine. It's not fine, obviously. And Willa becomes and meets her friend Robin. Robin is like besties with Willa, like really understands her. They're like this. So that's like one timeline. And then another timeline is we've now fast forward like 25 years. Willa still hasn't found her sister, but Robin and Willa are still friends, kind of. There's kind of like some weird tension there. And the setting of this book is that they are at a dinner party. So Robin is hosting a dinner party. Robin has her wife. They invite Willa and her boyfriend. I don't think they're married. And then they invite Robin's brother and his... There might be another couple. There might not be. I have no clues. But there's people there. So now they're all sitting at this table and everything's going fine. And we're kind of going back and forth from this dinner party where things are kind of a little bit weird. And then 25 years prior when Willa lost her sister, and we're kind of getting sneak peeks into her life and leads that she's followed and things like that. So that's kind of what this is going through, but won't give you too many thoughts here because, like I said, there's a vlog, but not my favorite. And then the last book that I read was You, Me, and Forever by Laura Pavlov. This book follows Montana and Miles. So Montana owns this wedding planner company in Alaska where she lives, Blushing, Alaska. And Miles is a billionaire who just bought a like inn sort of building in Blushing, Alaska. The bad thing is that this inn that Miles has bought is where Montana used, like she basically grew up there because her father is the head chef and has been for most of her life. And that is a very popular venue for her brides that she plans weddings for. So Miles comes in, he buys this inn, and his plan is to tear it down. So obviously Montana's like, I don't know who you are, but you are enemy number 1. She does not like Miles. She doesn't know who he is, what he looks like, anything. She just knows she does not like him. They're not gonna be friends. She has no interest in hearing him out. She hates him for wanting to tear down this very vital part of the community and her life. Miles comes into town. He's at a bar. He's just hanging out, getting something to eat. Montana goes to this bar with her friends and they use aliases. They are using fake names just for the fun of it. So Montana runs into Miles. She gives him her fake name. He obviously knows it's fake. They're like ridiculous names. So he knows it's fake, and he just introduces to himself as Miles. They don't give last names. So they have a one-night stand. It's great. They love it. It's beautiful. Montana's on cloud 9. And then the next day, she goes to the inn to meet with her very last bride who's going to have their wedding there, her very last one, before it tears down. And she runs into Miles and she's like, oh my gosh, I slept with the enemy. What now? So that is essentially where that book goes. And I gave this book 4 stars. I really enjoyed getting to know this new small town. This is book 1 in the like Blushing Alaska series. I don't know if it's called Blushing or Blushing Alaska, but it is the first in a series. So I really enjoyed like getting to know the small town. I really loved Montana's friends. I really loved Miles with Montana. He is such a sweetheart. He has a heart of gold, and I love that man, and I want him to be protected. I think his dad is mean, but that's okay. I feel like he has good people in his corner. His brother is amazing. So overall, I really enjoyed this. I loved their banter. I loved how they decided to work together and how patient Miles was with Montana. I really enjoyed it. There's so much quirkiness in this small town. The friendships were amazing. It was such an easy read. It was overall lots and lots of fun. So that is the last book that I read in May, and that is, well, I guess all the books I read in May. I had a really good time. There were a few books that I'm like, okay, not for me, that's fine. But overall, I feel like I really enjoyed most of my reads, which makes me so happy that I'm getting back into reading again. But yeah, so that is my May wrap up. Let me know if you've read any of these books, if any of these are on your radar, if they are now on your radar after hearing me talk about it for a little bit. And yeah, so that is all from me. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!